Welcome. In this video I'm going to be taking a look at this BougeRV 12V 23 quart portable fridge. So this was provided to me by the distributor, but they're not compensating me for this video and they're not reviewing it before I post it. If you find this video helpful and you want to purchase one of these, I'll put a link to it in the description, and if you use that link it helps me out a little bit and doesn't cost you anything extra. So let's get this open. Now one thing I want to point out, it says here this way up, and when this was delivered it was on its side. Now it's very important with the fridge that you keep it upright because it has lubricant in the compressor, and this has been sitting for over 24 hours upright to let that lubricant go back into the compressor. So if this is on its side, you don't want to run it right away, but you really want to heed these warnings with this and any other fridge or anything with a compressor like a dehumidifier. So here we have the fridge. I'm going to take this off my bench and I'll lift it up on the bench. Okay, so it's just the fridge itself in the box. I'm guessing the cords are inside of it. So this is made of this matte plastic, and then we have a glossy lid. It's very nice looking. On the side we have handles. On the bottom we have 4 rubber feet. On the back is a vent. On the sides we have vents, and we have the power port. Then on the front we have a vent. On top we have a control panel. And here we have a tip that addresses turning it on its side. It says keep it upright for 12 hours before starting. So the instructions are on this label. Hold down the power button for 3 seconds to turn it on or off. Press the settings button to switch between max and eco. Adjust the temp with plus or minus. Hold the settings and the plus to switch between Fahrenheit and Celsius. Then you hold the settings for 3 seconds to switch between the protection modes. So this has a max and an eco setting. So this can run on 12 volt or 120 volts with a power adapter. So if you're leaving on a trip, you can turn this on and turn it to max mode, and that's going to run the compressor longer and cool it quicker. And then when you're running it off battery, you can switch it to eco mode to extend your battery life. Now I think there's protective plastic on here. Let me pull that off. Okay, we also have a USB port here, so you can charge things with this. I think the idea there is if you're using the 12 volt socket on your car, then you can't plug a USB charger in it, so they provide that here. Now it does have the strapping tape around it, so I'll peel that off. There's also a piece down here on the front and back. So let's get this open. There's a slot here to put your hand in to open it. I think there's a magnet in there. Yes, this is a battery with some steel on it. And there are magnets embedded in the front. It looks like maybe 3. I think that's actually plastic, and there's magnets in the lid also. That's nice. That actually makes it really easy to open. So it magnets shut. So to hold the lid open, we have this ball chain. Over here we have a label. It has the model CR22. Voltage is 12 volts or 24 volts. Rated power is 45 watts. Rated current is 3.7 amps or 1.8 amps. Refrigerant is R134A. Foaming agent is cyclopentane. And then we have a chart here giving different temperatures for different things. So this is a fridge freezer. So if you're putting water in here, you could have it at 41 degrees. If you're having meat, you could put it down to 0 degrees or frozen. And as it says here, this is for reference only. You can do your own research and use your own judgment too. So here we have the inside. It looks like we have the wires here. Let's look at the inside first. So this is going to be a smaller space than an equivalent sized cooler. You can get away with that because you don't have to put ice in here. You can have this all be food. With a typical cooler, you have to put ice in there. Another thing is with a cooler, you might have sandwiches and you can really only put those on top because when the ice melts, it's going to get wet and you don't want your sandwiches sitting in that. If you were to put sandwiches in here, you could stack them in here and put a ton of sandwiches in here and you don't have to worry about the bottom ones getting soaked. Let's take a look at the measurements. So this is 9 3/4, and I don't know if that tapers a little bit. So it might be a little smaller at the bottom, but this is about 13 3/4. Height on that is about 9.5. This recesses just a little bit, but not very much. So it doesn't take up a lot of your space. And actually it goes up a little bit too. So it recesses around the edge and it's a little higher in the middle. So I'm going to move this back. We'll look at the cords. So here we have a manual. Let's take a quick look at it. This talks about a cover accessory. We have an energy guide, warranty card. Here's the manual itself. This shows the different parts. Looks like it comes with 2 extra rubber feet. That's nice. different notes, the guide for what temperature to use. It's nice they put that in there because a lot of people might not be aware of what the temperature should be for a fridge. And this shows dimensions or the control panel. Now this has the car protection setting. This will turn it off if your battery drops too low. And here's a chart with the cutoff voltages. Now a lot of cars will cut 12 volt off if the ignition's not on. You'll want to check that on your vehicle. You could wire in an accessory port that's powered all the time. So if you're running this off your car battery, I would probably do the higher cutoff mode to make sure I have power left to start my car. If I'm running this off an external 12 volt, like a lithium iron phosphate battery, I would turn it on the low mode. And here's some troubleshooting. Here's those rubber feet. So this is going to come with 2 wires to power it. This is a 12 volt adapter, has a 12 volt socket that you could put in a car. This would also work well in a portable power station. And then we have the 120 volts. So these both have the same end on them. And if we look on here, this outputs 14.5 volts at 4.1 amps or 45 watts. So the way I would use this is I would plug this in the wall, plug it into the fridge, and get this cooled off before I leave on a trip for camping or a day trip. And then when I'm traveling, I will use this to power it. According to the Amazon description, the DC cord is 10.82 feet and the AC cord is 6.56 feet. Let's get this plugged in and turn it on. So I'll use the AC adapter. I'll plug that in on the side. Now this only goes one direction. So the control panel lit up here and beeped. So I'll hold this down. And we have the display. It says 68 degrees Fahrenheit, H, 14.3 volts. So if I want to switch between max and eco, I can press this button here. So I'll press it once, we go to eco, it's flashing, I'll press it again, we can go back and forth to max. So when you press it, it puts you in that mode, and then you just leave it and we'll switch. So it's on eco now. It's kind of hard to see, but I have a power meter on the side. It's taking about 32.2 watts. I think it takes the same wattage when you're on high or low. I think it's just how much it runs that compressor. So this is the internal temperature. Now if we press plus or minus, it's going to change the set temperature. So we're at 32. So we can change it to say 37, and then it will go back to that current temperature. So it only shows the one temperature. You do need to press plus or minus to see it. Now when I press plus, it didn't switch it up to 38. It shows it to you first, and then it will switch it. So now it's cooling off. So if I want to turn it off, I'll hold down the power button, and it will turn off. Now you can set this as a fridge or a freezer. One thing to point out is this does not have a defrost mode on it. It's more like a chest freezer would be, so you could get frost if you're using it long term. If you're using it on just a weekend trip, you're probably not going to get a lot of frost built up on it. So I don't have anything in this. I'm going to put a temperature sensor in here, turn it on, and leave it for a while and see how long it takes to get up to temperature and normalize. Now that will change when I put food in it, but it'll give us a baseline to work from. Okay, so I've let this get up to temp. Now looking at the control, you can't really see it here, but there's a little lock in the bottom corner. So this automatically locks the controls. So to unlock them, we hold down on that settings button for 3 seconds and it beeps, and now we could change those. So if you put this in the back of your car and if some luggage taps one of these buttons, it's not going to accidentally turn it off. So let's head over to the computer and look at the numbers from the sensors. Okay, so here we have the chart of the initial cool down. We have 2 sensors. The straight line is the external sensor and the other line is the internal temperature of the fridge. Now we started out here at 8:26 in the morning and it was around 70 degrees, and then we turned the fridge on and it started to drop, and then around 20 minutes later we dropped down to 22.8 degrees Fahrenheit. So that was our first cycle. The compressor had shut off at this point. About a half an hour later, the compressor kicked back on. Now our set point was 37, but there can be discrepancies between the set point and the temperature that we're seeing here because the sensors are in different locations and such. Now if we scroll down here, we can see the energy consumption. So we started out about 40 watts, and then it dipped down, and then it settled up to the mid to upper 40s here, and then it ran, and then it shut off. And when the compressor switched off, we were drawing about 0.8 watts, which is the electronics in the fridge. Now if we look over to the right, that we can see it cycled again in about a half hour, and that ran for about 6 minutes. Now of course the cycle time would be longer if you had a warmer ambient temperature. Now if we scroll to the bottom here, we can see the total energy consumption, and it's at about 20, it says 0.2 kilowatt hours or 20 watt hours. It looks like it's more like 16, but if we look over to the right a little bit, and that's about 0.05 kilowatt hours or 5 watt hours that it took to run a single cycle later on. Okay, so now I've switched over to this battery, and this is just under 300 watt hours capacity, and it says it's currently drawing 32 watts, and the runtime on it is 9.5 hours. Now that's when it's running. This is going to cycle, so we should get much more time out of this. And I've also switched over to eco mode. So I unlocked it with the settings button and I pressed it, switched it to eco mode. I've also put some items in the fridge. So I have a gallon of water. Now if I put this gallon up like this, it doesn't quite close. It's probably about a ½ inch too tall. And I measured this is right at 10 inches. So if you have a jug that's maybe 9.5 inches or 9.25, that would probably fit better. But it does fit on its side. Now if I wanted to take this camping, I could just take it on its side and then smash that down when it's a little bit emptier, and it would fit. But I think most people are going to carry bottles of water, so those fit this direction. There's probably about an inch like that, or you can put them upright. We also have a can here. Now this is room temperature, and these were already in a fridge. Now if you're planning on running this off the battery, I would suggest putting items in that, plug it into the wall, and get everything cooled down before you take it on your trip or whatever. That way you're going to get the most capacity out of your battery. So I have these in here. I'm going to close this, still have the temperature sensor, and I'm going to let this run until the 300 watt hour battery is depleted, and we'll see how long this runs. Okay, so the battery is depleted now, and I did have the sensor plugged in here. It was drawing a little bit of power too. But let's head over to the computer and look at the numbers. Okay, so here we have the chart, and this is just the internal temperature, and we started at around 8:23 in the morning, and it ended around 11:20 at night, 20 something at night. But if we do a time duration here, it ran for about 15 hours. And we have about a 300 watt hour battery, so for every 100 watt hours, it ran about 5 hours. Now there is an issue here, is when I checked it in the morning, it had an E2 or an E1 error. It was the cutoff voltage. So this was set to the high cutoff voltage. I should have set it to the low, and I had reset it here, and it ran for about another half hour. So if we look here at the beginning, it used a lot of power, and then it went into kind of a regular cycle, and this is due to that big gallon jug of water. So what you really want to do is put all of your items in your fridge and run it on max power while plugged into the wall and get it down to temperature, and that will give you the max runtime when you switch over to battery. But even on this small battery, we got really good runtime on this, and if we had added a solar panel to this, we could potentially run this indefinitely so long as we have enough sun to recover the battery during the day. Now the temperature range on here was about 35 to the low to 41.5 to the high. And that's from where my temperature sensor was measuring. So when I open this up, if I put my hand on this water, it still feels cold. If I take my little temperature measure here, we're at 55 degrees. The bottom we're at 51. So that brings up another point, is it's best to fill the fridge as full as you can. And if you have empty space, maybe put bottles of water in there. And then, like I said, plug it into the wall, let it cool down. And those extra bottles and such will act as thermal mass, and it will take longer for those to change temperature, so it will retain the temperature better. Like when you open it up, the air won't get flushed out with warm air. You'll have that cold stuff taking up that space, and it will make it last longer. So it's good to have a full fridge, and then again, cool it down ahead of time so it's down to temperature, and then run it on your battery, and you'll get the most life out of your battery. So I'm going to go grab some more items so we can see how they fit in here. Okay, so I got some more pop cans here so you can kind of see how they fit. So you can't put 4 in a row here, but you can put 3 here, offset 3, and go across. Now if you stack them like this little rim will get in the way of the lid. But if you pull it in just a little bit, like this one, this middle area here, so the rim hits it, the middle area has enough clearance to double stack cans like that. Of course you could also lay them flat. Now there doesn't seem to be enough room to put them like this, side by side, but of course you could just put them in other ways. You don't have to stack it perfectly. So I don't have an exact count, but you can fit a lot of cans or bottles in this. So that's the BougeRV 23 quart 12 volt portable fridge. If you like to do outdoor activities, I think a portable fridge is the way to go. It will keep your food at a constant temperature, and this can do refrigerated or freezing temperatures, and you don't have to deal with all the slop of all the water in there. So you could take this camping, but this also would be great for tailgating. You could use this for day trips in a car, or maybe if you're just doing a road trip. You could put food in here so you don't have to stop and eat fast food, so it could save you some money. This would be no more difficult than a cooler to take into a hotel room. You could put it on the cart and then plug it in your room. A fridge like this could also work well on a power outage. You could put essentials in this and plug it into a portable power station and keep those things cold. And I hooked it up to one of the smaller portable power stations you can get, but a lot of people might have a 600, 1,000, 2,000 watt-hour power station, and you're going to get much more runtime out of those. And of course, you could plug your large home fridge into the portable power station, but a small fridge like this is going to get much better runtime. And being able to plug this into 12 volts, you could plug this into a lead acid or lithium iron phosphate battery also. And since this draws around 45 watts or so, many cars will have a 12 volt socket in the back in the trunk or hatch area, and you could plug this in to power it while you're driving. Now, of course, it won't be powered when you're stopped, so if you're stopped for an extended amount of time, it would be best to have that portable power station to plug it into. But when you're on the road, the car should easily be able to keep this thing powered. So that's all I'm going to cover in this video. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you like this video, please click like. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'd appreciate it if you could do that. And thanks for watching. Until next time, goodbye.